Hi everyone, welcome to AgentBuild Expert Exchange. I'm getting into really interesting discussions with experts in the data and AI space, whether these are practitioners, industry veterans, startup founders, or curious builders who are actively engaged in the agentic AI space. Uh, Sanjeev, uh, Sanjeev's passion lies in shaping the future of work. he builds he is building HumBot, an agentic AI company focused on redefining how businesses of all sizes access and scale expertise on the cloud. Now, HumBot is doing this by providing on-demand specialized digital teammates or orchestrated AI agents. They call it human-like bots, HumBots. These are capable of addressing complex challenges in critical areas like cloud engineering, security, and machine learning. HumBot is now empowering leading organizations to access expert talent on a tap. The development and curation of HumBots is driven by a strong commitment to trust and scale through human-controlled generative AI. And this is what we are going to explore with Sanjeev today. Sanjeev, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandeep. Good to be here.
Thanks. So what I would like to start with, Sanjeev, is I'd like to hear about some of the biggest AI transformations you are seeing in enterprises. One of the things we do in Agent Build community is while we focus on learning how to build AI agents or agentic workflows, we also focus on doing them, learning what are the enterprise constraints. Because ultimately, whether you're building a startup, whether you're learning to build AI agents, you're going to end up in production. All right, there should be some outcome, and that's where we focus on. So I think let's start from that point of view. Like, what are you seeing in enterprises today? And then if you can talk about how HumBot then fits into those spaces.
Yeah, thank you. And firstly, yeah, kudos to you for starting a community. I think communities like this are needs of the hour because there's so much talk. So, I mean, as we meet customers, we see that there's a lot more talk than action.
Mhm.
And part of the reason for lack of action is just that those who will build agents for our customer environments are also kind of learning. So everyone's on a learning path. Everyone's back to ground zero, as they call it. So great job for starting the community. On to your question now. You used the word transformation. I think the biggest transformation is more of a mindset transformation than anything else. Yes, technology is playing a big role, but customers are now getting to understand that there is a lot of value to be nurtured and to be derived from this big shift, which we know as generative AI and kind of AI agents, then forming a subset of it. So I think to me that's the bigger mindset. What that brings is a lot of experimentation budget getting unlocked in customer environments. And the one common theme, at least that we see from our conversations, is the indexation on trust and security. If we can kind of abstract these, a lot of concepts under these two umbrellas, because yeah, so everyone's beginning to accept the potential of it. They're probably not seeing the results around it, but then everyone's planning and preparing to a world where all those values is derived, and what would it look like post. So I think that's the biggest transformation. In HumBot, if we were to position ourselves, we did not create HumBot just because we saw the potential of generative AI. Generative AI is probably an accelerator in the HumBot vision. But for about 10 years, I've always seen two big problems in the enterprise space. One of skills gap. So skills gap about around deep technical expert. So businesses that adopt the cloud or sort of deep on-premise systems need experts to run those tools and platforms. And those experts are not available everywhere at the right price point for the right tenure with the right skills. So that was a skills gap that we noticed. And then when I started working with my co-founder, he potentially was one of the best engineers. I would say he was one of the best engineers on the planet. But again, he could not scale himself beyond 2 or 3 customers at one point in time. So the part of us starting HumBot was a simple idea to say, how do we unlock my co-founder's deep engineering expertise to say 1,000 customers? And then generative AI agents seem to be the right vehicle of choice to get there. So I think that's kind of how HumBot is positioned. It's about, as you said in the introduction, it's about allowing customers for deep curated expertise on a talent as a tap model.
Okay, so you talked about some of the constraints and what transformation you are seeing in terms of trust, security, and then really addressing the skills gap within enterprises with HumBots. What do you I talk to a number of enterprises here in this space, like with the adoption of AI, right? Yes, you can see a lot of hype in social media. Everyone posts about AI, including me. But we also know that enterprises are not as fast in adopting AI as we see in research papers, for example, right? Now, what are the roadblocks do you see often, and how do you think you can position HumBot to clear them? So we talked about skills gap, but what are the other things that you think come into play?
Yeah, I think the first thing is for every new technological shift or a perceived transformation that enterprise go into, the immediate step that organizations think of is how do we slot the right skills and expertise at the right juncture in that journey. So I think skills gap continues to be a roadblock, and we didn't plan it this way, but now that we have built HumBots that are unlocking kind of traditional workload expertise or skills, one of the data engineers we have added as a go-to-market from us is Mike, and we have curated Mike for specific skills around building the generative AI foundational stack, be it vector databases, the RAG structures, all the way up to UX. So we didn't plan it this way, but we just saw an opportunity to address for the skills gap in this shift with HumBot as one option. The second big area that I would say is kind of allocating the right budgets for the right time frame with the right definition of value. So, for example, customers are unlocking a lot of experimentation budget, which is good, but then post-successful experimentations, clarity on what it would take to allocate the right budgets towards production and sustain production at that is potentially unclear. So a lot of adoption or implementation start at budget reallocation. Only when you have that will anything downstream follow. So I think that's a big area. The third area is a lot of nervousness, I mean, it's not a roadblock, but something that we need to let a lot of organizations work through is their mindset around security and access around the right, let's say, the right data systems underneath. So generative AI is as good as what's powering it from an enterprise context. So things like access, security are key. And there are lots of evolving frameworks around it. So everyone's again learning around those. And towards the value side of it, as enterprises are looking at adopting or sort of consuming value, they're looking for things like explainability and transparency of whatever is the recommendation or the output of a reasoning workflow before actions happen. So again, there is a bit of nervousness around that, which is understandable. So I would say these are kind of not these are roadblocks, if that's the right word, or these probably are areas of learning or areas of learning paths that organizations need to go through.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think, I had a question for you. I plan to ask it later, but this might be a good segue in putting it here. The addressing, so talking about these challenges that you talked about, right? One of the things that I see is the people aspect of it. So people being nervous of their jobs being replaced by AI agents, which is obviously a big concern. And you are in a space where you're positioning HumBots like they would actually scale expertise, which also means that it might drive some nervousness into teams in terms of having another agentic teammate, if we call it so, right? Well, how do you look? What is your view on this? What are the cultural changes do you think we need in organizations to adopt agents within teammates? And do you actually think it's going to replace human jobs?
Yeah, I think there are two parts to it. So if you look at the buying journeys of customers, or at least that the ones we have experienced from HumBot. So we are only 8 months in, so we haven't done hundreds of customer implementations, closer to tens. The change is led top down almost everywhere. So nowhere have we had success positioning HumBot to an audience that we would typically class as the users of an HumBot product to scale themselves or their expertise. It's usually the exec layer who understand the potential of something like this and then bring us in and kind of guide us through the change through their sponsorship. So I think that's step one. That's kind of very, very clear in terms of evidence. Now, given that sort of a framing from the execs, as we percolate down layers of an organization and start onboarding users, the uh, except one customer, the other customers we have been are areas where the customers have traditionally lacked skills in the go-to-market area or the category we have gone in with. So our messaging has always been, you've lacked skills, you have large ambitions, and you have one or two experts. Let us help you scale that one or two experts so that you do more for less without adding any more headcount. Traditionally, you may have had to add, if data engineering is the category, you may have had to add 10 to do the outcome. Now it's one data engineer plus Humbots to scale. So I think that has really resonated well. And part of it is the challenge is then shifting to not about insecurity, but then how do you measure that particular one human data engineer and what kind of metrics do you associate to do a performance assessment on those. So I think that's how we have framed the question. Clearly, on the other side, where we have seen a bit of insecurity are around users who have traditionally associated themselves with the data engineering category that Humbots come in. And there has been in that customer there is an existing team of a sizable number. So yes, there has been insecurity, but what we are also learning through the journey is the same team can be reallocated to more number of projects with Humbots kind of filling the space. So let's assume, I can't give you specific numbers, but let's say there are 10 engineers, data engineers in an organization, and traditionally they were doing 3 projects just because of capacity issues. Now they're addressing 6 to 7 projects with the same 10 being spread out. So I think customers are beginning to realize it's not a zero-sum game. You can do a lot more even with the current talent without letting them go, or just kind of thinking of reallocating them outside of their core expertise, just because now they see they can probably take up more work. So that's been the experience so far. But there's also one clear observation I've had. Wherever we've gone in and had a touch point or the first touch point with the expertise category that we offer Humbots against, there has been no buy-in for whatever reason.
So what do you mean there has been no buy-in? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so let's say for now we have our go-to-market as Mike, which is a data engineer. When we've gone ahead and position Mike to data engineering users, the buy-in has probably been close to zero or very close to zero. But when we've gone to heads of engineering teams on exec layers of our customer functions, the buy-in is actually completely on the opposite side, which means customers have readily seen the potential, adopted, and even sponsored the execution of it. So I think it's a mindset shift over time. This zero-sum mindset of of a lot of enterprise personas is likely to change.
Yeah, I mean, one of the parallels that I can draw is with the software industry, right? So we a lot of these uh, software companies are embedding AI within their features, and one of the things that the practitioners in the software industry are envisioning is that software as a service will turn to services software. So basically, you provide work outcome as software, which I think you are in that space. Um, and then the debate comes in, okay, would that be then replacing human jobs? But I think that's where the point you mentioned kind of resonates, that when you have when you have tools that improve your productivity, you end up doing more projects, scale your company, maybe explore stuff that you have never explored before for whatever reason, like you don't have enough people, budget, etc. That opens up the market more rather than replacing people. I mean, that's I think that's the mental model
Yeah,
we are getting into, right?
yeah. And in fact, it was hard for me to like land this a year ago when we started talking about HumBot to customers. But now I have a lot of anecdotes to quote this mental
Mm.
model. So even yesterday, I read an article in Financial Times where the CEO of Ernst& Young has made a statement to say, for the same headcount profile, they want to deliver twice, two times the business. Now, it wasn't clear whether that was two times the revenue or two times the number of projects, but the mental model is clearer. So I think a lot of organizations will hit peak headcounts profile, or probably will hit peak headcount in the days to come. That doesn't mean they won't hire, but they won't hire in the numbers they used to. But clearly, they'll go after new segments, new opportunities that traditionally they never thought they could focus on.
That makes sense. And when they do that, I think one of the things that I face in customer conversations, and I'm pretty sure you're handling them as well, is the data privacy and compliance questions, right? So there are obviously huge concerns around how do you protect data, how do you make sure that customer data is safe, how do you comply with industry standards, uh, how do you help enterprises uh, kind of think about that when they use agentic AI to do their work?
Yeah, and I think agentic AI is still a broad word because there are kind of agent infrastructure platforms in the market that can go and be deployed. We are not agent infrastructure. We are more a closed-ended expertise scaler, which means we are a SaaS.
Hmm.
And because we are cloud native, it has really helped us uh, build on top of the cloud principles around identity, access management, and security. So it's no different in the agentic world compared to the traditional cloud world. A lot of access is currently is managed with the same paradigm. Now, data access also has been, I would say, a problem that we had to contend with even before generative AI days. Based on the users requesting access, you would allow for access using access management policies and principles. So we've continued that journey where generative AI has added a slightly more nuanced touch is around reasoning. So reasoning for us is customers have an ask of HumBots, for which HumBots need to access different kind of data stores for in the enterprise context, and then they run a large language model workflow or a set of workflows to kind of build a plan of action. Now, in that is where customers have expressed a bit of nervousness or have asked for more transparency around how do HumBots make certain decisions, etc. So clearly, building natively on the cloud has given us advantages around communication and also clarity for existing customer personas who are on the other side. The reasoning workflow is an outcome of lots of context prompt injections, a lot of context retrieval, and then a set of large language model interactions with them. So in that, what we have seen is building a framework to explain how HumBots reason for certain expertise categories and aligning that within the security and infrastructure teams of customers has helped us avoid a lot of questions later on. So we've kind of gotten buy-in from security and infrastructure teams way before. And typically these are the teams that have traditionally come with most questions around these areas. The way we explain it to simply put is a HumBot is kind of extension of a human. In the traditional days, every human will have an identity, a role, a set of policies on the cloud. Now, HumBot is just like a digital teammate. There's no big change in terms of how we should see things. And if the policies don't allow for access to certain data sets or certain resources on the cloud, even the HumBots are kind of can't take that action on the user behalf. So I think that clarity has helped us. Now, this is again our context. I can't answer for say, agentic infrastructure players who come up with their own security paradigms and kind of want customers to deploy that either on their clouds or on-prem systems, which is kind of a different game altogether.
Mhm. So talking about other players in this space, right? So we see agentic workflow orchestrators, for example, who would orchestrate agents into
Yeah.
workflows. Where do you, when you look at like at scale deployment, how are these like HumBot specialized agents that will be part of an workflow? How does it work if I look at the broader architecture?
Yeah, we've been called many things in the last year. We've been around for 7 months, so it's been not a very long time,
Yeah,
but
it's a
the
long time in
number.
the AI space.
Yes, that is so true.
Yeah.
That is really long time, and we should be experts by now, which probably we are in certain areas. Yeah, so we've been called vertical agents. We've been called orchestrators. We've been called outcome delivery agents. So the customers don't need to think of anything below the hood. They're just concerned with what it delivers. But again, going back to why we created HumBot, we wanted to scale human expertise. Human expertise is always like a workflow approach. So you think in steps. You hear from customers. You have a set of skills when you go in as an expert. Like 5 years ago, if you would call me and you were a customer, you would hire me for my expertise. So I have a set of a content repository in my mind. So we call that content. You will have a set of context that I need to come and learn around and kind of familiarize myself. So that's your context that I need to ground myself. Then my content kind of blends with your context to address the questions you're asking me. You'll ask me to say, do this. I will then apply my content with your context and come with a reasoning or a plan of action, which is kind of what HumBot's reasoning workflow is all about. And then once I align the plan with you, you give me a go ahead, I go and execute it on the tools that you give me permissions and access for. So that's actions. So in a nutshell, HumBot kind of does this. So content blends with context to reason and then act. Now, within this, clearly there are orchestration workflows that we have built. There are pure play agentic workflows where the large language models make the choice of where to route the next step, which is kind of true to the definition of agent. But again, we don't want to be known as kind of just an orchestrator or something. For us, it's all about the outcome delivery. The one thing I would still say is a lot of tools and platforms out there that we see are tying their success to select choices, be it a choice of a large language model or a specific vector database or specific set of tools. We have taken a conscious call to do none of it. So we are completely agnostic because we do believe the enterprise landscape is going to be heterogeneous. And if we are to solve for that, our focus should be how do we capture human expertise and scale that on top of whatever tool sets customers choose on. So I don't think there is a category for what we do. You can loosely call it orchestrators for now.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So talking about like your engagements with enterprises, are there any I know that it's very early. It's just been 7-8 months that you have started. But I also know that you have signed contracts with some of these enterprises. Like, is there anything you can share a success story yet? I mean, if you're allowed to, I would be happy for you to share that.
Yeah, we'll come out of stealth like in a month. So
Yeah.
we'll be sharing more via the landing page and website. But what I could share is something we've already listed in our kind of landing page as is. With customers, we are seeing outcome delivery of at 10% the cost of traditional expertise mix. So with one of our customers, which is kind of one of the largest organizations in the world, and we're just grateful to be part of that journey, their journey, so early as a fledgling startup. They had goals around building like a data platform across a global scale. And traditionally, that would have involved setting up expert teams centrally in a central organization and then operating countries where you then need to expand for influence. We've kind of flipped that model, the expertise mix, by saying very few humans scaled via HumBots. So we're already seeing the delivery of that outcome at about 1/10 the cost. And that's where it becomes kind of a no-brainer when we speak with the exec layer and land this. It becomes a no-brainer to at least test HumBot, if not commit to it. The other thing we're also seeing is time to value. And that's a metric I've always been passionate about. A lot of these skill gaps just delay your journey to get to somewhere. We're seeing almost an 85% acceleration in the time it takes to finish it. And there are there are quite a few examples I could give you in forms of use cases, but kind of that's the broad strokes to answer your question. And so this 10% and 85% promise is something that I feel confident to share upfront as a commitment with customers.
Uh, that's great. I mean, I have been observing your journey for some time, and I'm really impressed the way you have positioned yourself in the market. And there are customers, so you are learning from them, and looking ahead into the future, right? And we have listeners who are really interested in this space. They are either building startups like you, or just interested and curious to learn more about agentic and AI. What would be your, like, what do you think it is, where do you think it is going in the next 12 to 18 months? What are the trends that we all should be watching out for, and how are you in Humbert preparing for them?
Yeah, uh, I mean it's hard to like predict where this is going, given or maybe it's harder to predict the speed at which things will change. Probably it's easier to see where it's going from where we are. The one thing we see is every organization is going to do more for less, or potentially a lot more for less. It doesn't mean that there will be layoffs. So now we are coming back to a world where organizations that have previously laid off large teams in customer support are rehiring humans back, because clearly the human touch is valued.
Hmm.
So I think the premise of scaling human expertise will take we'll see exponential growth. So for all of us as human experts in the chain, it's time to I mean, double down on a set of core expertise areas. I think the more we know, and then it's also about using tools so we understand what the tools are capable of today, all these Gen AI tools. And then I'm sure all of us have the let's say the agility to plan stuff on top of the tools. I think that's how that every change has been dealt with. Even during the days of cloud, we kind of moved beyond infrastructure problems to data problems, security, just because cloud allowed us to think and it gave us the time to do so. So I think that will happen without fail. So yeah, double down, try to attack a breadth in terms of your expertise, and try to play with tools so you position yourself over and above tools. I think that's step one. Anyone who is not doing it is very likely to get missed out in a few years from now. At least that's something I'm beginning to believe. Even myself, I don't get into these hype cycles and start believing in them, but this is something fairly real. So the other big area that I could share just in a minute is the 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 evaluation of each one of us for our role will also change. And instead of evaluating us for the time we spend on a task, or or kind of the cost that we bring, the cost profile we bring to help the target parent organization deliver a task, I think the conversation will shift to kind of velocity of value. So are you going in the right direction, but also delivering faster by leveraging agents? So anyone who's kind of has an area of expertise, but also knows how to leverage all the tools out there to kind of orchestrate them as a human orchestrator and get value delivered, I think is in a great place in future. Probably, yeah, there's a lot more, but hopefully I'll stop at these two for now.
That's fine, and it totally makes sense. I mean, what I feel is, yes, absolutely, the performance evaluation model will change. It will be more outcome based rather than time based. And the more tools I have in my arsenal that I can use, the AI tools, I can perform better and provide more outcome to the business. Well, so it's really interesting, Sanjeev. Thank you very much for joining us in this short session. I think we have some really interesting information around how HumBot is going to work in human teams. You're already delivering it in some organizations. I wish you all the best. I'm pretty sure that we will see more of you as you come out of stealth and share some of these stories with us.
No, thank you, Sandeep. It was great, great chat. And yeah, like I said at the onset, I wish you the very best and hope this community kind of really grows into something a lot more purposeful and useful for anyone joining. So great to be part, great to be here. Thank you.